This is the D05 by EasySMX, a wireless controller designed for PC, Android, iOS and Nintendo Switch. It has Hall effect thumbsticks as well as triggers, 2 programmable back buttons, RGB lighting, a charging stand and an affordable price. But is it any good? Well, in this video, I aim to find out. To do this, I will be reviewing the D05 in 4 main categories, talking pros and cons in each, all before giving my overall thoughts at the end. At this point, I will mention that this controller was sent to me by EasySMX for the purposes of this review. But as always, this has had no impact on the content of this video or my views expressed in it. Now, if you do find yourself interested in picking up the D05, EasySMX have been kind enough to give my subscribers a 10% discount. All you need to do is just use the code GAV88D05 at checkout for the discount. I've also left a link to the product in the description of this video. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. So as mentioned, we will be putting the D05 through its paces in 4 review sections, starting off with the price and anything that's included with a purchase of the controller. Secondly, the design and key features, talking general aesthetics as well as any key attributes the controller possesses. Thirdly, the customization, anything you can do to make the controller suit you best. And then lastly, we have the playtest. How is it under use? One of the main selling points of the D05 is its affordable price. But how much will it set you back? Well, in the UK it comes in at around £38. The US $45 and in the EU €45. And included for your money, you'll receive not only the controller, but also this charging dock, which is a really nice inclusion. A charging cable, wireless USB dongle and the instruction manual, which I always recommend to take good care of as it does include all the information you need in how to pair your controller and dial in the settings. Taking a quick look at the included accessories, and while admittedly they are a little basic in design and overall quality, each is a very welcome inclusion. The charging stand especially. It cradles the controller well and looks pretty good when sitting at your setup. So I've just got to call it as it is. For £38, the D05 seems to be a great deal. It's very reasonably priced, and the charging stand inclusion definitely sweetens the deal. But there's no point in picking up a deal if the controller isn't any good. So let's move on and check out what the D05 has to offer. Let's talk about the design and key features. As always, let's begin with the general aesthetics. And for me, this is a great looking controller, largely reminiscent of an Xbox controller. It has a semi-translucent shell with a matte finish, which is super effective in allowing the RGB lighting to seep through. We also have the awesome gold D-pad as well as triggers, adding more colour to the controller, and adding to what is an already stunning looking gamepad. Moving on to the back, and we can see the 2 back buttons which have a textured grip which is appreciated, although could be refined in my opinion. This is also how I feel when considering the textured finish on the side grips as well as the bumpers and triggers. I'm happy they are there as so many controllers do lack this, but they could feel a little nicer. Touching on the face buttons, which have the letters etched into the buttons themselves, which is pretty cool. The view, menu, T and FN buttons are a little oddly shaped if you ask me, and just kind of protrude from the controller. Not a problem, just something I noticed. With the design out of the way, let's talk about the EasySMX's D05's main attributes. And firstly, we need to talk about the cross-platform functionality. As mentioned earlier, the D05 is compatible with PC, Android, iOS and Nintendo Switch. Later on in the video, we will see my thoughts on how it performs. But the wide variety of platforms we can use this controller with allows EasySMX to cover a wide variety of the market. Next, we have Hall effect thumbsticks and Hall effect triggers, incorporating Hall effect technology to virtually eliminate stick drift and give more consistent trigger pulls, greatly adding to the durability of the controller. It also has 2 programmable back buttons, which I generally like to bind to jump and crouch in shooters for example. It also touts a 1000Hz polling rate when played on PC, which should equate to a more responsive feeling experience. And rounding off the features, we again need to mention the RGB lighting around the thumbsticks. A built-in 1000mAh battery, as well as a turbo mode, and of course adjustable vibration. Now unfortunately we don't have motion control functionality with the D05, which is a bit of a bummer considering this controller is compatible with the Nintendo Switch. But I do get the general feeling that EasySMX are primarily targeting the PC player with this product, and obviously to keep costs down, I understand its exclusion. But despite this, I'm sure that we can agree the EasySMX D05 is packed with a number of features desirable in a controller. But is there anything we can do to make it suit our playstyle? Or indeed anything aesthetically we can do to make it our own? Well, let's move on to the third review area, the customization. Unlike other controllers I've reviewed on the channel, the D05 doesn't have a companion app to allow us to customize the gamepad. But the instruction manual does give us the information to do this on the controller itself. Most notably, we have the RGB. There are a number of preset animations to cycle through, while we can also adjust the brightness or turn it off completely, if RGB isn't your bag. We also have the ability to program the two back buttons to any of the face buttons, which, as I've mentioned before, really can be a game changer in many titles. A customization feature which the D05 possesses is the ability to swap the button layout from Nintendo Switch to Xbox, which is actually really helpful if you're going to be using the controller on both PC as well as Switch. Hopping between both platforms and having the same button act differently on both can be a little confusing, so this is a nice quality of life addition. So there isn't too much in the way of customization, but nevertheless, we do have some things to play around with. The RGB lighting most prominently. But there is no denying that this has been the weakest review area so far. Now though, it's time to move on to the final section, the playtest. How is it under use? So as this is touted as a multi-platform controller, I feel it's important to first mention the pairing of the controller to each device. And I'm happy to say that I had no problem connecting and everything worked as intended. Although I did find myself referring back to the instructions from time to time to remind myself how to connect to whichever platform I had decided to play on. I tried out the D05 on mobile, Nintendo Switch as well as PC, and found it to perform well on each. But for me, I much preferred playing on console and PC, as this is just generally where I prefer to game. On PC especially it played well, and thanks to its high polling rate it felt smooth and responsive. And to be honest, I felt very little difference between this and similar, more expensive controllers in this regard. In hand, it feels nice, and anyone that is a fan of Xbox controllers will be more than familiar with the layout and the form factor. To the touch, it feels almost matte on top, and on the bottom you can definitely feel the texture grip, although I have felt better on other controllers. It's no biggie, it's just more subtle on the D05 than on other gamepads. The thumbsticks feel good. They have a slight texturing around the edge and feel reminiscent of the sticks of an Xbox controller. One part that I particularly liked were the triggers. Now, many of you here know that I can be pretty fussy with my triggers, but I enjoy the triggers on the D05. Now, this might just be me, but I feel that they have a shorter travel than other standard triggers that I have used, which do make them pretty proficient when playing shooters. When it comes to the face buttons, I must admit I'm not a fan. I much prefer micro switch buttons to membrane, but this is just personal preference. Similarly, the D-pad isn't anything to write home about, but it is perfectly serviceable and, let's be honest, looks damn cool. Lastly, I'll touch on the bumpers, which I also think are pretty great. They don't feel cheap, as can be the case with controllers at this price point. They have a really nice satisfying feel when used, and I don't have many concerns of their durability. So in conclusion here, throughout my playtest I had a surprisingly great time with the D05. It connected easily to each device and felt good on the titles that I tried it out on. But with 4 review areas covered, what are my overall thoughts on the D05 by EasySMX? Well, as you've seen on the thumbnail, this is a good controller. Aesthetically, it looks great, with the RGB adding to what is an already eye-catching gamepad. It comes equipped with some pro features that really are a standard these days, namely Hall effect thumbsticks, triggers and 2 programmable back buttons. Under use, it performed well on the platforms that I tested it out on, although it is a little bit of a bummer that there isn't motion control functionality. But overall, when you consider the features that I mentioned, and also the package in totality, including the affordable price as well as the charging stand, for me, if you're a PC player looking for a nice everyday gamepad, that offers a bit more than your standard controller and also gives you flexibility on which devices you wish to game on, then I definitely feel that the D05 is a great choice here. Now remember, if you do fancy picking up the D05, remember to use code GAV88D05 for a discount. I've left a link to the product in the description of the video. And of course, remember to let me know what your thoughts are on the D05 in the comments below. I'm always curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on these controllers that I cover. But that's it guys, that's the video. Thanks so much for watching. But anyway, until the next time, I'll catch us.